All right, guys, so this is part two of video number two, where we're going to put the wheels and axles and things on the chassis. So what we're trying to do here, just so you see from the beginning, is build this. So you can see it's not super difficult, but what tends to be a little bit tricky for some people is the length of the axles and the gear, which I'll kind of explain as we go through here. So here's our piece that we glued together yesterday, and I already took the tape off of there. So the first thing that you want to do is find your straw, your Durling rod, your two metal axles, your four wheels. The washers are optional. It does roll a little bit better if you have that. And get your little pack of gears out. If you still have that X-Acto blade or razor or even scissors will work for this, because you can just cut the straw with scissors. And then you're going to need something to glue the axles onto the bottom. A hot glue gun is best. I don't know if everybody has a hot glue gun. Maybe your neighbors or grandparents or something. If you can find a hot glue gun, that would be great. If you have another type of glue, that would probably work too. You just might have to wait longer for it to dry. All right, so let's start by making our axle tube here. So the first axle tube is going to be the same exact width as the chassis. So I usually just kind of lay the straw on there and just cut it to the same length there. Something like that. The next axle tube needs to be a little bit longer than the other one, and it has to be longer to account for the width of the gear. So what I mean by that is if we look back over here at this chassis, you can see the one wheel has a gear on it, and if this thing's going to have any hope of rolling straight, then both of these wheels need to be close to being in alignment with each other. If this one sticks out and this is tight, it's going to veer right or veer left. So you can see that this axle sticks out a little bit longer up top there to kind of compensate for the fact that we got a gear on the back. So we got to make this tube a little bit longer here. So it's about a 1/4 inch longer. If you can picture a 1/4 inch in your head, great. If you can't, you can, kind of eyeball it with the gear there, but you're going to make this a little bit longer. Something like that. The rest of this is just trash. You can set it off to the side. As far as where these tubes get glued onto the bottom, there really isn't, an exact location. Obviously, if you put them like here, you've created a teeter-totter and not a vehicle. So you got to spread them out, but it doesn't really matter. Now, you got to think a little bit here, and this is the important step. Because of the way the motor spins, your gear from the top needs to be on the left side. If it's on the right, it's going to go backwards, and you're going to try and tell me that you did it on purpose, and you didn't. You screwed up. So it's got to be on the left, which means that when you're gluing on the bottom, it's got to be on the right. This is where people get a little screwed up. Right on the bottom, left on the top. So if I keep it on the bottom, we're going to take the axle tube that's the same length, and we're just going to glue this one somewhere on the bottom down here. About like that. Then, if we go back and look at our example, you can see with the gear on the right side from the bottom, the overhang is on the right. So that when we flip it over, it'll end up being on the left. So I'm going to glue this one up here. Something like this. So that our tube is hanging off on that right-hand side. Now we flip it over, tube's hanging off on the left-hand side, makes up for the gear over here. Once you have that part done, and you guys at home are lucky because you can kind of stop the video and watch it again if you need to. The people in the hybrid situation, they just get to hear it one time and then have to kind of remember it. So that's where some of the mistakes happen. You got 4 gears in this pack here. This little one is an important one. It's got a small hole on it. That one is your pinion gear and is going to mount on the motor. Don't lose this one. The other 3, 2 of them are just trash. You need, or you can do whatever you want with them. You need the one that's close to the size of your wheel. about like that. So these other two, you can just kind of set off to the side. I'm not sure why the company sends them to you. But what we're going to do is take an axle, and these can be kind of hard to get in here. If you have a hammer, it might help, but you're going to have to force those on there. And then slide the gear on top, like that. Drop a washer on there. Again, we want the gear to be on the side where the overhang is. So we're going to put that on that side there. Washer, wheel. If you go out to your garage or basement or something and grab a hammer to tap these plastic wheels on, be careful. I have had some people hit them a little bit too hard and kind of shatter the wheel and the gear before. And then, of course, you're just going to repeat the process for the front, which you don't really need to watch me do. It's not super exciting. You get the idea. Slide that on there. Put this guy on here. Put your front wheel on. And you have completed the chassis. And the next part is we'll attach all our electronics to this and kind of make a little support for the solar panel. All right, so stay tuned for the next video.